Winston, wake up.
Good day, Commander. Shall I warm up the engines?
Please.
Engine is up and running.
Winston, warp to Sector 7.
Warping.
Origin jump works at your service. Core system operational.
Vandal swarm initiated. Warning, there are multiple hostiles inbound.
Winston,
Contact.
scan the area.
Scanning.
Scan initiated. Initiated.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo. We're back here inside of Star Citizen in the Vandal Swarm mode with our 300i, and I'd like to introduce you guys to my brand new ship AI, Winston, powered by voice attack. You guys have probably seen this all over the internet lately. Even CIG has taken note of it and decided that they're going to do a little bit of research and consider what they might be able to do to get it into Star Citizen. So very exciting for the team behind voice attack, and just very exciting in general. I think voice attack's a great program, and the fact that it works so well inside of so many games just because it's so simple. It's just all about programming simple commands. You can use things like text-to-speech to make your ship have its own AI like Winston, like I have here. And for me, that's really the fun of it. Most of the systems, to be honest, I still enjoy toggling manually, but things like the shields and weapons, things where I would have to usually take my hand off the controller, move it to the keyboard to actually manipulate them, at least in the current state, I can now do through Winston. So, voice attack. Awesome program. I'll have a link to the website. It's $8. If you're into Star Citizen, hell, even if you're playing a lot of other games where you think voice commands could be, useful to you, I strongly recommend you check it out. And any of you guys, if you'd like to check out my personal profile for voice attack for Winston here, I'll actually have a Dropbox link where you guys can go download it right in the description below. You can modify it to your whim, but I have it set up with some interesting things like, the hello. I have Winston have a little bit of attitude when I do certain things, like suggest, what should I do in the situation. He recommends that we retreat, and I'm like, retreat? That's not what we do. And a couple other things that I mess around with, some humor that he has when you go to eject, things of that nature. So I'm actually building on this a lot more. It's not something I have finished yet, but I plan on making a cool little sort of machinima style video with this in the future that I've been working on. It's going to take some time. I'm trying to make it as cool as I can, I guess, without it being super cheesy. It's still going to be cheesy, but I think you guys will enjoy it. But what I really wanted to do today, apart from voice attack and introducing you to Winston, let's talk a little bit about combat in the 300i. We already did a free play video, and that was pretty early on, if I'm honest. I was just getting comfortable with the controller. The nice thing is now, I actually went and did a whole system restore on my computer. My computer's nice and clean, and I was able to get my Xbox One controller drivers to work, so on the Xbox One controller, which is just such a big improvement over the 360 gamepad, especially my 360 gamepad that was just worn out it was just worn beyond belief. The thing was one of the first controllers I bought for the 360, so yeah, you can tell it's a bit old, but let's get into a little bit of combat discussion. Some of the maneuvers that I've discovered with the 300i that, work really well, and just certain ways to combat things like G-Force, especially if you're someone who runs without G-Safe on. Now, you could go ahead and just, toggle G-Safe on and off. A lot of people have made that mention to me, but it's not really my style. I'd rather find the limits of my ship and always know, where the limit is, not have to worry about some crutch like G-Force, sort of deciding that for me. Let's not crash into our own Hornet there. Let's go after this guy quickly. So, one of the biggest things for combating G-Force that I've been making use of, when you start to pull like that super high G maneuver, or you're in the situation where you recognize that, okay, if I attempt to chase this Vandal that just flew past me at like 2 meters, going whatever 200 plus meters per second, if I try and rotate right now, all that's going to happen is I'm going to black out. So instead, make use of your decouple mode. You go ahead and swap off decouple, rotate the ship, hit the thrusters. It's almost like doing a power slide in a car, essentially, to change direction. Instead, you're nailing the decouple button, you're rotating the ship, the G's are still going the other direction, so you're not actually, you're still pulling, you're going in the same direction, you're not actually pulling any G's, you're still moving in that same path, you've just rotated your body. So that allows you to continue onward and change direction without actually pulling any G's. At that point, you go ahead, couple the systems again, and then hit the thrusters, and that's like just, it's like spinning the tires for a little bit. It may slow you down, it may not be the quickest way of getting around, but in that situation, if you're just trying to get eyes on target very fast, that is going to be probably one of the most effective things you can do, again, without blacking out or redding out for that matter. Now, speaking of blacking out and redding out, As a pilot, you can pull more negative G's than you can positive G's. Positive G's being the forces that push you down into your seat. It's like the heavy weight, crippling your chest. The thing that can cause your, your lungs and all that really bad stuff to happen. Negative G's are what essentially make you become lighter. You float out of your seat. That also causes redouts, which is blood rushing to your head. So it's still something you have to be very cautious of. But the fact is you can pull more negative G's than positive G's in Star Citizen. So what that means is you can use that to your advantage by doing a simple rolling maneuver when you need to actually rotate the ship. So say for example, we're cranking it, we got the boosters on, all of a sudden we need to turn around. Now rather than just doing this,
contact,
which could actually make us black out depending on, the rotation and how fast we're actually carrying speed and how tightly we turn. Let's see if we can kind of simulate that a little bit here. Let's get up to speed. Okay, there you go. See, we're starting to black out. We're gonna lose it for sure. Now in the same situation, we'll carry on in the same direction, get the boost up again. If we go ahead and rotate the ship and then push forward, you see that we've essentially gone around the same speed, but we weren't affected at all by any positive G's, and we also, of course, were not affected by any negative G's, since we can take so many more negative G's. Now, of course, you can still find that limit, and you can still red out, so you still have to sort of understand where that is, but that's why I enjoy flying without G-Safe on. You're going to learn those limits, you can look at your speed, you can start to just get a good familiarization and understanding for, okay, this is my limit. And then you can make... Let's get this guy. You can make use of that in combat to, sort of outgun and outturn other pilots because you know your limits. Someone who's flying with G-Safe isn't going to be able to tangle with you at that point, Once you know your limit and you can push it, you can get it so close to the point where you're actually starting to red out, you're actually starting to black out, but you're still in control of the ship, you're still engaging in combat effectively, you are going to be the ultimate effective tool at that point. Let's not go ahead and crash into that. That was close. One of the cool things, though, recently that Star Citizen wanted to talk about, something that's going to change, the way we fly in Star Citizen, is, of course, that this isn't a finished flight model. A lot of people, for some reason, thought it was. I always found that to be a very strange thought process. Like, yeah, they're leaving it like this. No. The game is so early on. Let's get this little Vandal bugger. There's a lot of changes happening. We're going to have our full Newtonian mode. We're going to be getting rid of the, this mode right here, which doesn't allow us to actually have all those degrees of freedom. We're going to have that 6 degrees of freedom. We're going to get the full Newtonian physics mode. A lot of changes happening with the thrusters and just everything. And I'm very excited for that. One thing, though, that they did maintain saying, which was something that I was, completely in agreement with, was when you look at something like the Aurora. It's a ship that works in combat, but it wasn't specifically designed for combat. Therefore, a lot of people have been claiming, oh, it's so sluggish and it's so terrible, it sloshes all over the place. It's supposed to. It's a big, heavy, back-end heavy ship. It has no, sort of concept of combat. It's not designed for that. And that's what they're going for. Not every ship is going to be effective in combat maneuvers, and that's just how it should be. It makes sense. So a lot of big changes are going to be happening with the flight systems and everything, as most people should have expected. So very, very excited to see those changes. That also means, as pilots inside of Star Citizen, messing around with Arena Commander, we're going to have to adapt. We're going to learn one way to play the game, and things are going to change a little bit. They're probably just going to improve, so I think, adapting your skills and understanding the flight systems at this early level, it's just going to be like, Uber Christmas when they start to add all these 6 degrees of freedom things. You're already going to be somewhat comfortable with the decouple mode, and you're just going to have even more freedom and a more adaptability inside of combat situations. Let's go ahead and see if we can't drop this last Vandal here.
Proximity alert.
That was a close one, to say the least. Again, making use, of the whole couple mode to kind of rotate my ship as quickly as possible. Do it again here. Backwards. Just stay decoupled, We're clear behind us. We know that we have some space. We can try and engage the target before we head and hit the thrusters. One of the big things when you are coming out of decouple mode in a situation like that is you have to be careful as the direction of your ship as it's moving backwards and how much speed you're actually carrying, because if the ship is slightly sideways and you go ahead and slap on the couple mode, your ship is actually going to, it's going to be affected if the thrusters are sideways. You're actually going to get a little bit of negative feedback, and the ship is going to sort of fight you a little bit. Which, of course, if you're actually engaging in combat and trying to keep a dead, a straight target, you're trying to get accurate hits, that's going to affect your accuracy a little bit there, which could be, life and death. So you have to be very, very careful there. But overall, I mean, the biggest thing, at the end of the day with Star Citizen Arena Commander is just practice, practice, practice. Understanding, the lead on your ship and, how far your weapon systems can engage, and again, the limits that you can push your ship to. That is really the biggest aspect of messing around Arena Commander for me, is just understanding the limits of these ships. Sadly, I'm just going to have to learn them all over again when the Avenger comes out, because I don't actually own... Ooh, that was a close one. I don't actually own a 300i. Let's get this little bugger over here. Man, those Vandals, dude, they can just fly with like nothing left on their ships. Let's be careful here. But what I want to ask you guys, the big question is have you actually been spending a lot of time in Arena Commander? You've just been flying around. Are you really that amped that, you're like me and you've been spending countless hours just doing nothing but free flight and messing around with Vandal Swarm just to practice your combat tactics and your flight skills? And if you have been, what kind of tips and tricks can you leave for your fellow pilots in the comment section below? And of course, I can't recommend, guys, the things I talk about, trying to fly without G-Safe, really learning the boundaries of your ship, and just becoming more comfortable with pushing it to the limits. It's going to make you just a much more effective pilot when it comes to combat, in flight in general. Maybe in the future, in something like an escape situation where you're trying to outrun a ship that is obviously quicker than yours, but you have that advantage of really knowing the limits of your ship, and you might just actually be able to push your ship further than they can, even if their ship is better equipped to really reach those limits. You can see a little bit of what I was talking right there. I engaged a couple mode while my ship was essentially at a sideways angle. I wasn't facing the direction I planned on going once I recoupled, and that caused my ship to sort of fight and twist a little bit. So there's a lot of things to learn still in Arena Commander. There's a lot of things to learn about flying in space. It's such a different beast when you compare it to, actually fixed-wing flight down on Earth in atmosphere. So I am just really, really hyped for Star Citizen at this point. Still hyped for it. Can't wait to see a lot of those big changes. The full Newtonian mode is something I'm really looking forward to. Really being able to, mess around with that in combat scenarios, in free flight, whatever it may be. But we've taken a look at free flight inside of the 300i. We've taken a look at combat, and the next time you guys see me for Star Citizen, we're going to be checking out the Aurora and really talking about its limitations and what you can and can't do with it. Really how far you can push that ship, whether it be just in a regular free flight situation. I think I'm going to put together some chase scenarios maybe. Talk a little bit about maybe losing other ships, pirates, whatever they may be, chasing you down while you're inside of the Aurora. And of course, we'll actually do some combat in the Aurora as well, and sort of talk about its weak points and its strong points as a ship that is generally not designed for combat. I mean, it only has one shield on the front, and as I said, it's not the most maneuverable ship when it comes to space combat. But until next time, it's been Tony Mo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Weapons system